Nothing unlocks anger and boredom quite like old-timey music. I'm excited.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you would be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, hello. My name is Jay, or Johnny. I'm the lead singer and guitar player, and the writer of music in Kingnomad.
And how would you describe the music of Kingnomad?
Well, actually, it's sort of a living process. We started out very much sort of stoner doom, very fuzzy and heavy, but I always wanted a very melodic touch, especially with the vocals and harmonies, and so we started off pretty heavy, but we have evolved back to my musical roots more and more, which is sort of the progressive symphonic late 60s, early 70s progressive rock. So I don't actually know where to put us at the moment. Sort of space travel rock and roll, perhaps?
That sounds good. Space travel rock and roll, but definitely the feeling is much more in tune with the bands of the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And where are you guys based?
In the northern part of Sweden. So me and the other guitar player, who also plays a little bit of keyboards, we are neighbors. And then we have the bass player and the drummer. They actually live some miles from us, further in the country. So we are, sad to say, a bit apart from each other. But it works pretty good.
Let's talk about how the band got together. How did you guys form, and what led you to play the music that you guys are playing?
Okay, how did we start? Well, I have to track this back a little bit. My wife, she's a musician too. And when we bought the house we're living in, we have a pretty good basement. And we were sort of thinking, what should we do with this basement? And since she's a musician too, we very quickly agreed on we should build a studio. So we did, actually. And when the studio was finished, I was thinking a little bit what I should do. Me and my wife play a little bit of music together, so that was one thing. But now I sort of had a chance to explore a little bit myself musically. So my neighbor, we have a pretty big connection musically to, we listen to perhaps quite different music, but we connect very easily through our music. And he was the one to introduce me to Ghost. I introduced Mac to Orchid. Mac introduced me to Graveyard, and I introduced him to, sort of went back and forth. So me and him started hanging out in the studio a little bit and just playing around, actually, just improvising, having fun, couple of beers. Then I sort of started for reals writing for what the hell we were doing, and ended up with a couple of songs which were pretty good. And we sort of made a demo with these songs. We ended up with 4 songs, actually. Mac, who introduced me to Ghost, which is actually still a huge influence for me. I think they're a very, very interesting band. So I wanted to make a sort of mixture of the vocal harmonies and melodies of Ghost, but with a more 70s heavy sound-ish. So we started fiddling around with that concept, ended up with 4 songs. We made the demo with these 4 songs and got a huge response with it. It was like I sold very many, and got in touch with Todd from Ripple Music, and he was interested in maybe doing something. And then me and Mac, we were like, okay, so this thing is sort of growing a little bit here. We have to find some people to play with, because we were missing a drummer and bass player. So we sort of got in touch with some old friends, asked if they wanted to join, play a little. Basic concept number 1, is to have fun together. Playing music together should be a fun and exhilarating experience. So that was, rule number one. And we have really fun playing with each other. And, one thing led to another. Now we're released album number 3. It's insane. It's crazy. But it's fun still.
So I want to go back to when you originally formed the band, and you mentioned a few bands. You mentioned Ghost, you mentioned Orchid, you mentioned Graveyard. These are all bands that are doing kind of a retro 70s proto-metal kind of sound. I'm curious, what is it that drew you to this sound?
Well, that has to be, I think, my growing up. My musical roots lies with early Jazz, early Genesis, Gentle Giant, Sky. I can mention a bunch of bands, but most of the bands I still love is actually from the late 60s and 70s. So it was very, very easy, what's this gonna sound like? Well, I wanted to sound like the stuff I listen to, the stuff I listen and love to the most. That's what I, enjoy doing the most, I suppose.
And you mentioned that you recorded the demo before you had a full lineup. Is that correct?
Yes.
So does that mean you were playing most of the instruments on the demo?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I can cheat my way playing most instruments. Actually, I can play a little piano, I can play drums, I can play bass, I can play, put a fiddle in my hand and give me a week, and I can probably play you something. So I really love playing music, and exploring with different instruments is just, it's really fun. I actually, when I started out, when I was young, like 12, 14 years old, started jamming with my, early music adventures. I played drums. That was my main instrument, but I switched to guitar after, a few years.
I'm assuming since you play most of the instruments and you're the main songwriter, you're handling most of the songwriting by yourself before it reaches the band.
Yes, that's actually precisely how it goes. I write all the songs, all the lyrics, and often we meet up in the studio and I play them the songs, how about this, and how about that, and they go like, oh, that's pretty good, and that sucks, and perhaps we can do something different here. And then we do that. We try. I take in all my friends' input, and we sort of try to make the best of it. As some things are jammed out in the rehearsal room as well, like the main riff on Omniverse, the opening song on the new album. That sort of came from a jam in the rehearsal room. So you can go that way too.
The demo was recorded in 2015, is that correct?
2014, I think. Let me think. So, yeah, either it was recorded somewhere in the gap between 2014 and 15, I think. Yeah, it's important.
No.
I think the genesis of the band is 2014, when we actually recorded the demo. I'm a little unsure, actually.
Okay, but you reached out to Ripple soon after that. Why Ripple? Why was that the label that you were interested in signing with?
Well, that was actually sort of an accident, because we got such a great response. I wanted to sort of check with people in the business who were actually dealing with this sort of musical genre. Like, are we on the right track with something. Is this something people might be interested in? So there was this PR label called Sheltered Music. No, fuck, what was it called? Sheltered Music, I think. Sheltered Music PR. And I thought I mailed Sheltered PR when I accidentally mailed Todd for some reason. So I was sort of mailing Todd, asking, you who are in the PR business with this sort of music, yada yada. Could this be some cool stuff? And he was like, yeah, I'm sort of Todd and own a record company. This is pretty cool. So it was sort of on a banana shelf, just slipping in.
Were you familiar with Ripple and the kind of bands that they have on the label?
Yes, yeah. I was very much I was discovering a lot of music 2014, 15-ish, from Ripple and Riding Easy Records, and yeah, so sort of delved head first into the whole music scene of the stoner doom thing.
You released 2 albums on Ripple and have a third one that just came out this month.
Yeah.
Before we get to the new album, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the progression through your music. When you started off, I think the influences that you mentioned are quite prevalent. It very much falls into that ghost graveyard witchcraft kind of sound. But I think over the course of the albums, you started employing a lot of other influences and getting into more of a psychedelic, almost ambient kind of sound. What would you say led to the progression? What would you say led to the change in the band?
The change in the band was led on by what? Me wanting to go back to do the music I grew up with. I think it was sort of the doom stoner thing was a very intense crush I had. So, the first album was very influenced on the music I listened to at that point very much. I think I grew out of it a little bit. I still enjoy that music, but it's no longer this infatuation. It's no longer this crush that I have. So I've sort of tried to go back to my roots, but keeping intact the Kingnomad sound a little bit. And I think we have done that pretty good, actually, so far. Although we have strayed a very, very long way with the new album, sound-wise. But actually, it goes back to also when I listen to music and the bands that I enjoy the most are the bands who evolve, those who can go through a transformation but keeping the spirit of the band intact. Take a band like, for example, Yes, the band Yes. They, when you listen to the first album and then you go into the 70s and then you go very progressive and symphonic, and then we go with the 80s and you go with this almost bombastic arena rock, and then they go back to the progressive roots again. The music never stands still. The music lives and grows, and I want to make that sort of music. I want to make music that just flows. It can change. I get bored very, very easily when I listen to music. They're like AC/DC have maintained their sound all these years, and they do it pretty good. But I think that's perhaps the only band that does it well. All other bands, they sort of stick to one sound through every album. Oh man, that's boring. I'm sorry. I just think that's, good for you if you enjoy it. I don't really buy into it. I want to feel that the music sort of can be alive. Sort of? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious because from that first demo to now, you've filled out the lineup with a few members. Has the input of the other members also affected the way that Kingnomad sounds?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially live. Because sticking to this thing that music should be sort of a living, breathing creature, when we have sort of recorded a song, we feel like this is good stuff. And we start, rehearsing, we're going to play live or whatever. And all of a sudden, Mano, the drummer, is like, but hey, this groove was way cooler. Can we do it this way? But of course we can. Or the bass player goes, oh, okay, I'm going to change this because this sounds so much better. Yeah, do it. Go crazy. Music shouldn't be written in stone. It's like you record it, then you release it into the world, and people get their mind around it. Then we, as a band, creator of the song, we have the opportunity to keep evolving that music, and I like that. I like the way Grateful Dead, another fantastic band I listen to very, very much. You can have 2 live recordings of the same song, and it's totally different. So cool. It's the same song, but they're doing it differently. I want that.
Have you guys released a live album yet?
No. Nope. It's a thing I don't, we enjoy playing live. I don't think we are ready to do a live album. Especially now with living in the coronaverse, we haven't, been sort of together for 6 months at least. So, but should the occasion arise and Ripple perhaps asks us, want to do live album? Okay, perhaps. Then we have to start practicing, man.
From a single silver
So on July 10th, you released your third album. Would you mind saying the title for me?
Sagan Om Rymden.
And yeah, so I wouldn't have been able to say that quite as well. Can you tell me what it means?
The title?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So here we have a long story. I'm gonna try to keep it a little bit short. Have you heard of a Swedish musician called Bo Hansson?
No, but I would like you to explain who Bo Hansson is and how he influenced both the album and the title.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Bo Hansson is sort of rooted in the late 60s, early 70s. Made quite a few albums, actually. Very instrumental, psychedelic, almost being ambient sometimes. Fantastic musician all over, and both me and Mac have Bo Hansson in common. Actually, we all the band do. We all enjoy him. Sadly, he passed away quite a few years ago. So, Lord of the Rings, you have heard of?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Bo Hansson in the early 70s made an album. In Swedish, Lord of the Rings translates Sagan om Ringen. So Bo Hansson releases an album called Sagan om Ringen, which is, his version, his musical take on Lord of the Rings, which we all in the band love very much. And the title Sagan om Rymden we were at a party actually at our neighbors, the other guitar player and his wife and family. We were having dinner and perhaps having a beer or two, maybe. And my wife sort of we're sitting and discussing sci-fi movies and, Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and stuff. And my wife has sort of a brain fart when this is the difficult part because I can't really translate this well. She sort of has mix up with Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, but in Swedish. So she says, well, this movie, Sagan om Rymden, which would perhaps in English translate not Star Wars and not Lord of the Rings, but perhaps Star Rings, maybe. And she's got these two movies mixed up, Sagan om Rymden, and both me and Mac looked at each other and goes like, holy crap, that's a cool title. What should we do with it? Should we make it a song? Should we make another band? Or should it be, the next Kingnomad album? So we sort of meditated on that for a little while, quickly decided, let's call the next album Sagan om Rymden, make it a vaguely concept piece about space. At the same time, giving a homage to the late and great Bo Hansson with the title. At the same time, going back to my roots musically more, more of the 70s sound, not so heavy, not a lot of fast guitars, just, 70s psychedelic-ish rock with a tip of a hat to Bo Hansson. And, I think that's pretty much the story.
So in a nutshell, the title of the album is both a tribute to Bo Hansson and the influence that he had on you, as well as a little bit of a pun on the name of his album. Would that be fair to say? Yeah, that's pretty fair. Yeah. So you mentioned wanting to move away from the faster parts and moving more to a more psychedelic sound. So in comparing this album to your previous work, would you say that's the major difference?
No, there's a huge difference between these two albums. Our second album, The Great Nothing, that was my attempt to make a huge conceptual piece, which I don't think anyone got. I don't think to this day anyone really understands that album, which is okay. that's okay, no problem. Conceptual piece in the way that you have returning melodies, the lyrics, the things you hear in the intro, you can hear later on in the album. There's themes going on all over the place. And the B side is, just one big song chopped up into 3 other songs with a major theme going through the whole thing. And the album ends like it began, in a way. I have old friends making guest appearance on it. I have friends that I have sort of we fell out for many years, and I reconnected with that friend, and he came to play on the album. My kids are on the album. My wife sings on that album. The concept is a little bit spiritual. It's sort of grabs my life, the things I believe and the things I don't believe up to that point when that album is done. So it's a very, very personal album. It's a very conceptual album, and no one got it, okay, fuck it. So with this album, I wanted to make a simpler album. I wanted to make ordinary songs. I thought, I'm not going to have 10 different themes going on repeat on different songs. I'm not going to have a lyrical concept either. But in the end, there is a vague concept on it. Absolutely. But I wanted to make a simpler album in one way. I wanted to make simpler songs, shorter songs that people maybe could grasp a little easier. So I think it's a huge difference. Sound-wise, it's a huge difference too, because I have always done everything myself. I have mixed the album. I haven't mastered the album, but I have always, mixed the songs and all that. So I didn't do that either. I left the mixing part to a very good friend of mine, and he did a great job. So the sound is also different to a certain point. So 2 really completely different albums, definitely. But Sagan Om Rymden, it became a little bit of a conceptual piece, but not in the way that The Great Nothing was. The Great Nothing was, The Wall with Pink Floyd. Sagan Om Rymden is more like Keeper of the Seven Keys with Halloween, if you want to, talk concepts.
Cruising mysteries untold, symbols and technology, ancient artifacts unfold, guardian vessel sleeping, carries me and my sweet sister.
So let's talk about the recording a little bit. If I'm not mistaken, you do all your recording in your own studio, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And this is the basement that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is the first album that you had mixed by someone else. Can you tell me about who mixed this?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a dear old friend called Kjell Nästen, and he's he's 60. Is he 65, 67? He's getting pretty old, man. Back in the days, back in the 70s, he sort of had the biggest and best studio, I think, north of Stockholm in Sweden. All big bands who were something some time in their career recorded with Kjell Nästen. So he, I have never encountered anyone who have the sort of ears that he has. It's so weird. And he sold his studio. I don't know how many years ago, but he sort of built up his own studio in his house that he has now. So he has a very good studio too. And we have, I have worked with him many, many years ago, and we sort of stayed in touch. And, me and my wife has recorded some stuff with him. And, since he has mastered my albums, that is an art form I do not, I can't do that well. So I asked him if he was interested to this was the first album, the Mapping the Inner Void, and asked if he would like to master the album. He said, of course, very much. He sort of already then, got in touch and asked, this is pretty cool stuff. I wouldn't mind trying to mix song or two somewhere in time. And I was like, okay, maybe, perhaps. And the chance got up with this album. I felt like I couldn't really, at that time, do this. The songs we had, I couldn't really do them justice. So I left them to Kjell, and he did an excellent job, I think.
And in terms of his mixing and his mastering, how would you describe the sound of the album? Because the word space has come up frequently in this conversation. That's the feeling I get from listening to this album. Like, it's a very open, very, it's very expansive. It's a very, very big sounding album. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, thanks. That's sort of a goal, I think, to have this sort of spacious sound. When I sent him the songs, I sort of gave him very much free hands. I was like, do your stuff. I don't want to get involved in the beginning just to see how you interpret the songs and what you can do with it. So, here's the songs, go crazy, and, talk later. So actually, if I had done it, it wouldn't sound like that. Absolutely not. That's not to say I'm happy with the result. I think he did an excellent job. But it was so fun to, give him free hands, give him the freedom to, do your stuff, do your thing. And then, a couple of weeks later, get the first song, and it sounds like nothing that, I didn't expect it to sound like that, actually. Not at all. But it grew on me very, very, very quickly. And it's like, okay, this is pretty cool. We can go with this. And I think it's sound... when I talked about letting the music evolve, letting the music grow, it really has grown thanks to Kjell, actually. Very much. So, thank you, Kjell.
In terms of the music evolving, I noticed that there is almost a Middle Eastern or Indian music kind of sound on one of the songs on the album.
Yeah. When I start to work on new music, I want to have, just to make a quick comparison with the Great Nothing album, that when I sat down to write that, I knew I wanted to make a grand concept album, and I actually wrote, I want the first song to be like this. I want the second song to be like that. I want the third song to be a softer one. I want, I had everything in my head how I wanted it. I want the B-side to be one long song. I wanted, to try to make, with Sagan Om Rymden, I had an idea that I wanted to try to make music in ways I hadn't made music before. For instance, I hadn't written a Kingnomad song with an acoustic guitar before. Okay, cool. I sit down with an acoustic guitar and I see what comes up. And up comes the creation hymn. I hadn't written a Kingnomad song sitting by the piano. Whoa, okay, I do that. And, up comes the unanswered question. So I sort of had that thought throughout the album of, doing the writing part in ways I had not written a song before with this band. And that was so much fun. So there came, the Indian thingy part with the Multiverse came from, that sort of concept.
mention of the coronavirus and how your band hasn't been able to rehearse. I'm assuming Sweden is under some kind of lockdown or social distancing orders.
Yeah, Sweden hasn't, been. We live in the northern Sweden, and we haven't been affected as bad as in the south of Sweden. That's for sure. But social distancing, absolutely, no lockdown as such. But we are careful. You gotta be. So yeah, what are you gonna do? It is what it is. Gonna roll with the ball.
And since this is a difficult time for bands, especially performing musicians, to make plans, what would your hope be? What would you like to accomplish in the near future?
Well, finish writing album number 4.
So when you say finished, does that mean you've started?
Yeah, I can't help myself. I thought, when I had finished Sagan Om Rymden, I was like, I have a sort of medical condition. I have a sort of, I have very, very bad English when it comes to this, arthritis,
Yeah, absolutely.
that runs in my family. My mother had it pretty bad, and I'm gonna have it pretty bad when I grow old. I know my fingers are gonna look like old twigs. So in the process of Sagan Om Rymden, my fingers hurt pretty bad, and I thought, am I gonna write another album after this? Maybe not. This could be it, but we'll see. But came late March and April, I started feeling a little bit better in my fingers, a little bit. The album got released and it got good reviews so far. Anyways, and I sort of got, I got excited again about music, and I thought, like, damn, I think I have sort of some music in my head. Maybe I should go down to the studio and just, see what happens. And, up comes a couple of songs and a thought and a purpose and a theme. So we'll see, what happens.
So when you say a couple of songs, how many songs do you have? And when you say a theme, do you want to give us a little bit of a hint of what the theme might be?
Well, I have soon finished 4 songs, and one of the songs are sort of an album epic. Every album has to have an epic song. Have you noticed? You can have your sort of ordinary 3-4 minutes songs, but you have to have one massive chunk of epic music. Tillbakablick, Usurper King is the epic track on Sagan Om Rymden, so gotta have that. The 3 sort of quotation marks, ordinary songs, and the album epic is soon finished here. Actually, as for the themes, well, Sagan Om Rymden hints at, space, and the sound actually, that too, the spacious sound. Every song is, tied to the concept of space in one way or the other. So it's gonna be a sort of part 2-ish, I'm gonna say here. I live out in the woods with my family. I enjoy music and I enjoy books, and I read a lot of. Last couple of years, I read a lot about, space and time and Einstein and, that sort of themed books. So I'm gonna it's gonna be a sort of, I'm not gonna give it away any titles here, but it's gonna be, if all goes well, sort of part 2, I think, here. Yeah. How about that for a tease?
Very cool. So the 3rd Kingnomad album is out now through Ripple Music, and I will attempt to say the title. Sagan Om Rymden. Is that close?
Oh, it's close to perfect.
Well, it's out now through Ripple Music. Tell people how they can order it. What's the best way to get this album?
Well, you can order our album at ripplemusic.com, of course. You can order through our Bandcamp, kingnomad.bandcamp.com. Ripple Music have an European distribution now as well. So, if you live in the States, you order from there. And if you live somewhere in Europe, you can order from Ripple Music Europe distribution. So, yeah, that's the place. Otherwise, we are on all the usual suspects, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and so on and so forth. So stop by and say hi.
Very cool. And is there anything else you want to say?
It has been an absolute pleasure being on your show. I hope my crappy English hasn't caused too much trouble. And, peace, love, and understanding to one and everybody.